Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. The concrete walls of United States Penitentiary Atwater stood like tombstones against the California desert sky. Inside, a different kind of law governed the cell blocks, one written in blood and enforced with shanks fashioned from toothbrushes and stolen metal. This wasn't a story about redemption or rehabilitation. This was a story about power, territory, and the brutal organizations that turned America's prisons into battlegrounds. Detective Sarah Chen had seen her share of violence in her 15 years with the FBI's Gang Task Force, but nothing prepared her for what crossed her desk on a cold February morning in 2023. A confidential informant, a former shot caller from inside, had reached out with a chilling message: they're planning something big. Something that'll make the headlines look like child's play. The informant's name was Marcus Webb, a 42-year-old man who'd spent 20 years navigating the treacherous waters of prison gang politics. He'd been a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most feared white supremacist prison gangs in America, before turning informant after his younger brother was murdered in a gang-related hit on the outside. Now, sitting across from Chen in a nondescript safe house in Sacramento, Marcus looked like a man haunted by ghosts he couldn't outrun. "You don't understand how deep this goes," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette, the orange glow illuminating the spider web tattoo that covered his neck. The AB, the Mexican Mafia, the Black Guerrilla family, they all have their territories, their rules. But something's changed. Someone's trying to unite them. Chen leaned forward, her pen poised over her notepad. Unite them? That's impossible. These gangs have been at war for decades. Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of humor. That's what I thought too. But 3 weeks ago, I got word from my contacts inside Pelican Bay. There was a sit-down, a meeting between high-ranking members from different gangs. That never happens. Never. The implication sent a chill down Chen's spine. Prison gangs operated with military precision, their influence extending far beyond prison walls into drug trafficking, extortion, and contract killings on the streets. The Aryan Brotherhood alone was responsible for an estimated 18 to 25% of murders in federal prisons, despite comprising less than 1% of the prison population. The Mexican Mafia controlled most Hispanic neighborhoods in Southern California, collecting taxes from drug dealers and ordering hits with impunity. The Black Guerrilla family had roots in political activism but had evolved into a sophisticated criminal enterprise. If these organizations were actually coordinating, the consequences would be catastrophic. Who's behind it? Chen asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. Who has the juice to bring these enemies to the table? Marcus stubbed out his cigarette, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her skin crawl. That's the thing. Nobody knows. Whoever's orchestrating this, they're a ghost. No name, no face. But they've got connections everywhere. Inside guards, lawyers, even people in law enforcement. Chen felt her blood run cold. A mole in law enforcement would explain how these gangs always seemed one step ahead, how evidence disappeared, how witnesses recanted. Do you have proof? Anything concrete? Marcus reached into his jacket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. His hand shook as he slid it across the table. This was smuggled out of ADX Florence 3 days ago. Florence is where they keep the worst of the worst, terrorists and gang leaders in 23-hour lockdown. If they're getting messages in and out of there, they can reach anyone, anywhere. Chen unfolded the paper carefully, her eyes scanning the coded message written in tiny, meticulous handwriting. Most of it was incomprehensible, gang slang and symbols she'd need specialists to decode. But one line, written in plain English at the bottom, made her heart hammer against her ribs. The walls are coming down. March 15th. No one is safe. That was 2 weeks away. Chen looked up at Marcus, her mouth dry. What does this mean? What's happening on March 15th? But before Marcus could answer, the safe house's front window exploded inward in a shower of glass. The gunfire was deafening, a staccato rhythm of death that tore through the safe house like a chainsaw through paper. Chen hit the floor instinctively, her hand reaching for the Glock at her hip as Marcus dove behind the overturned table. Bullets punched holes through the drywall, sending white dust cascading through the air like toxic snow. Whoever was outside wasn't just shooting to scare them. They were shooting to execute. Back door, now! Chen screamed over the chaos, her training kicking into autopilot. She fired 3 rounds through the shattered window, providing cover as Marcus scrambled toward the kitchen. Her mind raced with a single terrifying thought: how did they find us? This location was classified, known only to her and 2 other agents in the task force. The leak Marcus warned about wasn't just real. It was active, and it was hunting them. They burst through the back door into an alley reeking of garbage and desperation. Chen's sedan was parked 50 feet away, but it might as well have been a mile. Two figures in black tactical gear rounded the corner, assault rifles raised. These weren't street thugs or desperate gang members. These were professionals, military-trained operators who moved with the coordinated precision of a kill team. Chen dragged Marcus behind a dumpster as bullets sparked off the metal, the sound like hammers on an anvil. "Who are these people?" she shouted, ejecting her spent magazine and slamming in a fresh one. "I told you," Marcus gasped, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead where flying glass had caught him. "They have people everywhere. Ex-military, dirty cops, mercenaries. Money talks, and these gangs have billions flowing through their operations." The gunfire stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence more terrifying than the violence. Chen knew what that meant. They were flanking, moving to cut off any escape route. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, but before she could dial, Marcus grabbed her wrist. "Don't. They're tracking you. That's how they found us." Chen stared at him, the implications crashing down like a collapsing building. Her phone, her badge, her car, everything the Bureau had given her was potentially compromised. She was blind, deaf, and hunted in her own city. A voice called out from the darkness, smooth and cultured, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "Detective Chen, there's no need for this to get messier than it already is. We just want Mr. Webb. Walk away, and you'll live to see tomorrow." Chen's jaw clenched. "Not happening." A low chuckle echoed through the alley. "We thought you might say that. Admirable, really. But understand something, detective. You're not fighting a gang. You're fighting an empire. The Aryan Brotherhood controls the drug trade in every prison west of the Mississippi. The Mexican Mafia has 30,000 soldiers on the streets. The Black Guerrilla family has infiltrated corrections departments in 6 states. And that's just 3 organizations. There are dozens more, all answering to the same voice now." "Who?" Chen demanded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "Who's pulling the strings?" "Someone who understands that chaos is a ladder, detective. Someone who knows that the real power doesn't come from wearing a badge or sitting in an office. It comes from controlling the men everyone else has given up on. The forgotten, the violent, the desperate. March 15th isn't an attack. It's a revolution." Before Chen could process those words, Marcus made his move. He burst from behind the dumpster, running toward a fire escape with surprising speed for a man his age. Chen screamed his name, but it was too late. The muzzle flash lit up the alley like lightning, and Marcus crumpled to the ground, his body jerking twice before going still. Chen raised her gun, fury overriding caution, but the tactical team had already vanished like smoke. She ran to Marcus, dropping to her knees beside his broken body. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the dim light. His eyes found hers, struggling to focus. "The chapel," he whispered, each word a battle. "San Quentin. Father Michael. He knows everything. Stay with me, Marcus. Help is coming." But Marcus was already gone, his final breath escaping like a prayer. Chen knelt there in the filth of the alley, holding the hand of a man she'd known for less than an hour, a man who died trying to stop something monstrous. She heard sirens in the distance, but she knew they'd arrived too late. They always did. With shaking hands, she reached into Marcus's jacket, finding a small USB drive hidden in an inside pocket. Whatever secrets it held, men had just killed for them. Chen pocketed the drive and stood, her body running on adrenaline and rage. She had 2 weeks to figure out what was happening on March 15th, and her only lead was a prison chaplain who might already be dead. As she disappeared into the Sacramento night, she didn't notice the small camera mounted on the building across the street, its red light blinking steadily, recording everything. Somewhere, in a place beyond her reach, someone was watching. And they were smiling. San Quentin State Prison loomed over the San Francisco Bay like a monument to human suffering. Chen stood outside the visitor's entrance at dawn, the USB drive burning a hole in her pocket like radioactive material. She'd spent the previous night in a dingy motel, reviewing the encrypted files on Marcus's drive using a laptop she'd bought with cash from a pawn shop. What she'd found had nearly made her vomit. Detailed plans for coordinated riots across 12 federal and state prisons. Lists of corrupted guards, their bank accounts fattened with deposits from untraceable offshore accounts. Photographs of politicians, judges, and high-ranking law enforcement officials at parties they'd never want the public to see. But most disturbing was the manifest, a shipping document showing containers of weapons, military-grade firearms, and explosives, routed through the port of Long Beach, scheduled to arrive on March 14th. The pieces were falling into place, revealing a picture so dark Chen had questioned her own sanity. This wasn't just a prison uprising. It was a coup, a carefully orchestrated plan to weaponize the incarcerated population and unleash them on American cities. Father Michael Reyes met her in the prison chapel, a small sanctuary that smelled of incense and desperation. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. When Chen showed him her credentials and mentioned Marcus's name, those eyes filled with tears. Marcus was a good man who made terrible choices, Father Michael said, his voice thick with grief. He came to me 6 months ago, terrified. He discovered something during his time inside, something that haunted him until his dying day. Tell me, Chen urged, glancing at the chapel door. She'd entered the prison using fake credentials, a felony that would end her career if discovered. But careers didn't matter anymore. Lives did. Father Michael led her to a confessional booth, the traditional place where secrets were shared. The man orchestrating this, the one they call the architect, he's not just some crime lord. He's a former intelligence officer, CIA Black Ops, someone who understood how to build networks in the shadows. 10 years ago, he was convicted of treason and sent to ADX Florence. But prison didn't break him. It gave him an army. Chen's blood turned to ice. You're saying a federal prisoner is running this entire operation from Supermax? Not anymore, Father Michael said, his voice dropping to a whisper. 3 weeks ago, there was a transfer, supposedly routine. The architect was moved from Florence to a federal medical facility in Texas. Except he never arrived. The transport van was found abandoned in New Mexico, the guards dead, their bodies burned beyond recognition. The Bureau kept it quiet, didn't want to cause a panic. Chen felt the world tilting beneath her feet. An intelligence-trained mastermind, freed and operating in the shadows, with an army of prison gangs at his command. Why March 15th? What's the significance? Father Michael pulled out a worn Bible, opening it to a bookmarked page. The Ides of March. The day Julius Caesar was assassinated by his own senators. The architect sees himself as a revolutionary, overthrowing a corrupt system. On March 15th, during shift changes at prisons across the country, the corrupted guards will open the gates. The weapons will be distributed. And tens of thousands of violent offenders will be released simultaneously into unprepared cities. Chen's mind reeled with the implications. The chaos, the casualties, the complete breakdown of law and order. We can stop this. I have the files, the evidence. We can alert the Bureau, lock down every prison, arrest the corrupted officials. Father Michael's expression was infinitely sad. You still don't understand, detective. You can't trust the Bureau. You can't trust anyone. The architect has spent a decade building this network. He has eyes everywhere, including in your own agency. If you go to your superiors, you'll disappear just like Marcus. The only reason you're still alive is because you're off the grid. Then what do I do? Chen demanded, desperation creeping into her voice. I can't stop this alone. You don't have to, a voice said from behind her. Chen spun, her hand reaching for her gun, but froze when she recognized the man standing in the chapel doorway. Deputy Director James Holland, her mentor at the FBI, the man who'd recruited her straight out of the academy. His face was grim, his eyes carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. Sir, how did you? I've been tracking the architect for 2 years, Holland interrupted, stepping into the chapel. Behind him, Chen saw shadows moving, agents in tactical gear securing the perimeter. We knew someone was building a network inside the prisons, but we didn't know the scope until recently. When Marcus reached out, we saw an opportunity. We've been one step behind this whole time, watching our own people betray us. Chen's relief was overwhelming, but something nagged at her, a detail out of place. How did you find me here? Holland smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The same way we've been tracking you since Marcus died. Through your phone, your badge, your car. All Bureau equipment, all compromised from the beginning. The chapel suddenly felt very small, the air thick and suffocating. Chen's hand tightened on her gun. You said the equipment was compromised. You didn't say by who. Very perceptive, detective, Holland said, his voice changing, becoming colder. That's why I recruited you. Intelligence, integrity, dedication. Qualities that are rare and valuable. But also qualities that make you dangerous when you're on the wrong side. The truth crashed into Chen like a physical blow. You're the architect. Holland's smile widened. I prefer visionary, but yes. 20 years I spent hunting terrorists, cleaning up the government's messes, getting my hands dirty so politicians could keep theirs clean. And what did I get? A false accusation, a show trial, and a life sentence. The system is broken, detective. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt. And who better to do it than the men society has already thrown away? You murdered Marcus, Chen said, her voice shaking with rage. You killed your own informant. Marcus was weak, conflicted. He would have compromised everything. But you, Detective Chen, you're different. You have the skills, the training, the moral flexibility to survive what's coming. Join me. Help me build something better from the ashes. Chen raised her gun, aiming at Holland's chest. I'd rather die. Holland sighed, genuinely disappointed. I was afraid you'd say that. The tactical team moved into the chapel, but they weren't aiming at Holland. They were aiming at Chen. Father Michael grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. There's a tunnel, maintenance access, behind the altar. Go, now. Chen didn't hesitate. She fired twice at the nearest agent, sending him sprawling, then dove behind the altar as gunfire erupted. Father Michael fell, clutching his chest, his blood staining the sacred floor. Chen wanted to help him, but he was already gone, another good man sacrificed to ambition and madness. She found the tunnel entrance, a rusted metal door hidden behind a tapestry, and plunged into darkness. Behind her, she heard Holland's voice, calm and confident. Lock down the prison. She doesn't leave here alive. Chen ran through the tunnels, her breath ragged, her mind racing. March 15th was tomorrow. She had evidence, but no one to give it to. She had the truth, but no one who'd believe her. She was alone, hunted, with 24 hours to stop a catastrophe that would reshape America. But as she emerged from the tunnels into the morning light, her phone, the compromised device she'd kept as a decoy, buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She opened it, her heart pounding. Detective Chen. We know what Holland is planning. We can help. Come to Pier 39, Slip 27. Come alone. You have allies you don't know about. Chen stared at the message, paranoia and hope warring in her chest. It could be a trap. It probably was a trap. But it was also the only chance she had. As she disappeared into the San Francisco streets, San Quentin's alarm sirens began to wail. Inside, Holland stood in the chapel, looking down at Father Michael's body with something approaching regret. March 15th, he said to his team. The world changes tomorrow. Make sure nothing stops it. But in his pocket, unnoticed in the chaos, a small recording device blinked red. Father Michael's final act, his last confession, capturing every word Holland had spoken. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning.